Right now, as you are sitting in your car, or as you are watching this from your driveway because you are too afraid to drive it, that red or amber airbag warning light on your dashboard is lying to you. Not malfunctioning, not warning you of a genuine danger. Lying. It is a manufactured crisis, engineered not in a safety lab, a, but in a corporate pricing meeting where someone decided that the single most terrifying word a driver could see illuminated in their car was the word airbag, because a terrified driver does not negotiate. A terrified driver does not get a second opinion. A terrified driver hands over their credit card and says, whatever it takes, just fix it. And today, that ends. What I am about to show you costs 2 cents, takes 60 seconds, and it will make a dealership service advisor physically uncomfortable if they ever find out you know it. This video is the reason those advisors hate the internet. Let me tell you exactly what happened to you, or what is about to happen to you, because this affects tens of millions of vehicles on the road right now. You moved your seat. Maybe you slid it back to stretch your legs on a long drive. Maybe a taller family member adjusted it and slid it all the way back. Maybe you did it 100 times over 5 years and it happened so gradually you cannot even identify the moment. It does not matter. The result is always the same. A cheap, poorly designed, bright yellow plastic wiring connector hidden directly beneath your seat track. A connector that the manufacturer paid approximately 4 cents to produce worked itself just slightly loose. Not disconnected, not broken, not melted, or corroded, or damaged in any meaningful engineering sense. Just slightly, microscopically, insufficiently seated. And that microscopic gap, smaller than the thickness of a human hair and its electrical consequence, told your car's safety computer that your entire airbag system had suffered a catastrophic internal failure. So the computer did exactly what it was programmed to do. It lit up that light. And then a dealership looked at that light and quoted you $1,200. To understand why this happens, and why it is so perfectly, cynically exploitable, you need to understand what the Supplemental Restraint System computer is actually doing every single second your ignition is on. The SRS module is not a passive system. It is not simply waiting for a crash signal to fire the bags. It is an obsessive, paranoid, continuously operating electrical inspector that is measuring right now the precise electrical resistance of every single circuit in your entire airbag network. Every sensor, every squib, which is the technical name for the small explosive initiator inside each airbag inflator, every clock spring, every seatbelt pretensioner, every passenger weight classification sensor. It is measuring all of them, constantly, in real time, and it is comparing those measurements against an extraordinarily tight tolerance window, measured in ohms. We are talking about a system that is calibrated to detect faults in a range that would be invisible to almost any other electrical system in your vehicle. The typical SRS circuit is designed to operate within a resistance window of approximately 2 to 3 ohms. The system will tolerate a variance of perhaps 1 ohm on either side before it declares a fault. 1 ohm. To give you a sense of how small that is, the resistance of a single foot of standard copper wire is a fraction of 1 ohm. We are measuring electrical properties at the level of the quality of a single metal-to-metal contact point inside a plastic housing. Now here is where the history becomes critical, because this sensitivity was not an accident, and it was not purely a safety feature. It was a federal mandate that the industry quietly turned into a profit machine. In 1998 and 1999, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration issued a series of regulations requiring automakers to deploy what were called smart airbag systems. The previous generation of airbags had a horrifying problem. They deployed with the same explosive force regardless of the occupant: small women, children, rear-facing car seats. They were all subjected to a full-force airbag deployment that, in low-speed crashes, was causing more injuries than the crash itself. The new federal standard required that vehicles be able to detect the weight, position, and sometimes even the seatbelt status of the occupant and modulate the airbag deployment force accordingly. This required an entirely new network of sensors, many of them located under and around the front seats, connected to the central SRS module by wiring harnesses that ran along and under the seat track rails. The engineers who designed this system faced a genuine challenge. The airbag circuit needs to be sensitive enough to detect a fault before a crash occurs, because a bag that fails to deploy in a collision because of a corroded wire is a deadly outcome. So they built the monitoring system to be extraordinarily sensitive. But what they also did, in the interest of cost reduction at scale, was use relatively inexpensive plastic connector housings for the underseat harness connections. These connectors were never designed to withstand the specific mechanical stress they would actually face in service. Every time you move your power seat, the track rails flex, the floor pan beneath flexes, the wiring harness attached to the seat bracket flexes, and that yellow connector, pressed together by simple plastic retention clips, experiences micro-vibrations and micro-movements that over months and years work the male and female pin halves incrementally apart from each other. The contact surface area between the pins decreases. the resistance of the connection increases. And eventually, that resistance climbs past the SRS module's tolerance threshold. The computer registers a high-resistance fault on a safety-critical circuit, and it does exactly what its programming demands. It shuts down the entire airbag system and illuminates the warning light. Now here's the moment I need you to pay attention to, because this is where the engineering problem ends and the financial exploitation begins. The engineers who built these systems knew about this failure mode. It is not a secret in the industry. Technical service bulletins, which are internal documents that manufacturers distribute to dealership technicians to describe known issues and their solutions, have acknowledged underseat connector integrity as a diagnostic step for SRS warning lights since the early 2000s. But here's what a technical service bulletin is not. It is not advertising. It is not posted on the dealership's waiting room wall. It is not something the service advisor mentions when you hand them your keys. It is a document buried in a database that a technician consults only if they are specifically looking for it. And there's absolutely no financial incentive for anyone in that service department to look for a 2-cent solution when a $1,200 module replacement is sitting right there on the diagnostic screen. Diagnostic computer they plug into your OBD port reads a fault code. Let us say it reads B92, or a similar SRS harness fault code depending on your vehicle platform. That code says there is a resistance fault in a passenger seat sensor circuit or a driver airbag initiator circuit. The diagnostic flowchart that a dealership technician is trained to follow does not begin with check the connector. It begins with measure the resistance at the module. And when they measure at the module, they are measuring through that loose connector, so the high resistance reading confirms the fault. The flowchart then says replace the module or replace the clock spring or replace the sensor assembly, because the flowchart was written by the same company that sells you those parts at a margin that would make a pharmaceutical executive blush. The clock spring assembly in a mid-size sedan, which is a relatively simple coiled electrical contact housing in the steering column that allows the airbag circuit to maintain continuity as you turn the wheel, costs the dealership perhaps $80 to $120 wholesale. They charge you between $400 and $700 for the part, and then they charge you another 3 to 5 hours of labor at $160 per hour. The entire job, for a part that may have absolutely nothing wrong with it, billed out at over $1,000. And the root cause, the loose yellow connector under your seat, remains untouched. So in 6 months, the light comes back on, and the cycle repeats. This is not a conspiracy theory, and this is documented in owner forums for virtually every major vehicle platform produced in the last 25 years. Toyota Camry owners, Honda CR-V owners, Ford F-150 owners, Chevrolet Silverado owners. The thread titles are all identical. Airbag light came on, dealer wants $1,200, found the loose connector under the seat, light is gone. These threads have hundreds of thousands of views. The solution has been publicly known in the enthusiast community for decades. The dealerships know it too. They are simply counting on the fact that you are frightened enough and unfamiliar enough with the area beneath your seat to never look there yourself. So here's what you are going to do today, not next week. Today, before you drive that car again, if you want complete peace of mind about the safety aspect of the procedure, the first and most important step is to disconnect your vehicle's negative battery terminal. This is the black cable on your car battery. You loosen the clamp bolt with a 10mm wrench, slide the cable off the terminal post, and tuck it aside so it cannot make contact with the battery. You must wait a minimum of 15 minutes after doing this before you touch anything related to the SRS system. This is not optional, and it is not a precaution I am adding for liability reasons. Modern airbag systems store a residual electrical charge in a capacitor inside the SRS module specifically so that the bags can deploy even if the battery is severed in a collision. If you disturb a live SRS connector, you could trigger a deployment. A deploying airbag in a closed space, against your face or hands, generates a force of approximately 2,000 newtons in under 30 milliseconds. It will break your hands. Disconnect the battery. Wait 15 minutes. After 15 minutes have passed, get on the ground and look under the front seat, the driver's seat first, then the passenger seat. You are looking for a bright yellow plastic electrical connector. The automotive industry standardized the color yellow for SRS wiring specifically to make it identifiable as a safety-critical circuit. It is almost certainly yellow. It will be sitting along the wiring harness that runs alongside the seat track rail, typically toward the front or rear of the seat mechanism. In some vehicles, there will be one connector per seat. In others, there may be two. When you locate it, examine it visually. In many cases, you will be able to see a small gap between the male and female halves of the connector. In other cases, it will look properly seated, but the electrical connection at the pin level will be insufficient. Press the two halves of the connector firmly together with your thumb and forefinger until you feel and hear the retention clip click into its fully locked position. Apply firm, even pressure. Do not force it at an angle. Press straight together along the axis of the connector. Once it is fully seated, take a standard 4-inch or 6-inch plastic zip tie, the kind that comes in a bag of 100, for $3 at any hardware store or online retailer, and loop it around the connector body and the wiring harness together, pulling it snug so that the connector cannot work itself backward under vibration. Cut the tail of the zip tie flush with small scissors or a nail clipper. Check the second seat if applicable and repeat the same process. Now reconnect your negative battery terminal. Tighten the clamp bolt securely. Get in the car, do not start it yet, and turn the ignition to the on position. Watch your dashboard. The airbag light will illuminate along with all the other warning lights as the system runs its startup self-diagnostic sequence. Watch it carefully over the next 5 to 10 seconds. In the vast majority of cases, every other warning light will extinguish on schedule, and the airbag light will go dark right along with them. The fault is gone. The circuit reads within tolerance. The system has confirmed continuity. Your airbag system is fully operational. Start the car. Drive it. The light will not come back because you secured the connector against the micro vibrations that caused the fault in the first place. Now, if your light does not extinguish after this procedure, you have a genuine fault elsewhere in the system and you should have it properly diagnosed. I am not telling you that every airbag light is a loose connector. I am telling you that the overwhelming statistical probability, backed by decades of owner documentation and fleet service records, is that it is. Verify that first. It costs you nothing but 15 minutes and a zip tie. I want you to think about the number of people right now who are driving a perfectly safe car with perfectly functional airbags, who have that light on their dashboard, and no money in their budget to visit a dealership. They are driving under the false belief that they are unprotected, stressed every day by that light, because no one in the industry will tell them to look under their seat. The repair industry built an entire revenue stream on a 4-cent plastic connector. They built it specifically because they knew that the words "your airbag system has failed" would short-circuit your rational thinking and open your wallet without hesitation. They did not build it to keep you safe. They built it so that your fear keeps them profitable. If this information saved you money today, I am asking you to do something that costs you absolutely nothing. Share this video, send it to the group chat, post it to your neighborhood forum, tag the person in your family who just got quoted an insane number at a dealership. Every share of this video is a direct financial hit to a system that has been exploiting ordinary people for 20 years. Subscribe, because what is coming next will be even more uncomfortable for the industry. In the next video, I'm going to show you the exact factory coolant additive, a specific silicate compound that costs $4 and is sold under a generic label at industrial supply stores that automobile manufacturers quietly removed from their approved coolant specifications in the early 2000s, specifically because it was so effective at preventing internal corrosion that water pump replacements, which are an $800 job, dropped by nearly 70% in commercial fleet testing. They found the compound, they tested it, they confirmed it worked, and then they quietly took it off the approved list. I have the fleet maintenance data, I have the internal correspondence. And next video, you are going to see exactly how a $4 bottle of additive was suppressed to protect a $1 billion repair category. Hit the bell. You will not want to miss